My dear brothers and sisters, let me begin with this little joke, one that makes us laugh but also invites us to reflect. There is a story about a bus full of very unattractive people that had an accident. When they arrived before God, God in His mercy offered each person one wish. One by one, they said, "I want to be beautiful." God granted each wish in a snap. Beautiful. Snap. Beautiful again. This went on down the line. At the very end was a man laughing so hard, and he could barely stand. When it was his turn, God asked, "What is your wish?" Still laughing, and the man said, "Lord, I wish they were all ugly again." We laugh, but if we are honest, that jokes touches something real in us. We often focus too much on appearances, how people look, how successful they seem, how impressive they are. And sometimes, without realizing it, we judge others or even feel better about ourselves based on those appearances. That is why today's reading speaks so powerfully to us. In the first reading, Samuel is sent to anoint a king. He sees tall, strong, impressive men and assumes they must be God's choice. But God stops him and says, human beings look at appearances, but the Lord looks at the heart. David is the youngest, the least expected, left out in the field. But God sees his heart. God sees what really matters. This theme continues in today's gospel. Light is closely connected to sight, and sight is essential to our well-being. Jesus tells us plainly who He is, the light of the world. And when Jesus gives sight to the man born blind, He is doing much more than healing the man's eyes. He is restoring the man's whole life, his body, and his soul. As the man's physical eyes are opened, the window of his soul is opened too. At first, he knows only that the man called Jesus healed him. And later, he recognizes Jesus as a prophet. And finally, when Jesus reveals himself as the Son of Man, the once blind man bows down in worship and says, "Lord, I believe." This is not just a miracle story. It is a journey of faith. The man does not stop at recognition. With humility, he cooperates with the gift of faith. He chooses to leave darkness behind. As St. Paul tells us in the second reading, "Take no part in the fruitless works of darkness." The healed man becomes one of the children of light. Christ has given him light, and now he begins to live in that light. His blindness, which seemed like a weakness, becomes an opportunity for God's power to be revealed. As Jesus explains, this happens so that the works of God might be made visible through him. Human weakness becomes a doorway for grace. Sadly, not everyone in the gospel chooses to see. The Pharisees, the experts in the law, are the ones who resist the most. They accuse the healed man. They accuse Jesus. They are so sure that they are right that they refuse to listen. Their blindness is not physical. It comes from within. Blinded by pride, they think they can see, and so their blindness remains. This is the most dangerous kind of blindness, choosing not to see. They follow the law carefully, but miss the greatest law of all, and that is the law of love. Today, we are warned by the bad example of the Pharisees and invited by the good example of the blind man who became a disciple. Lent calls us to examine ourselves honestly. Where might pride be blinding us? Where might we be judging by appearances instead of seeing with the heart? The closer we draw to Christ, the light of the world, the clearer our vision becomes. Grace helps us see differently, not just with our eyes, but with our faith. This is part of the work of Lent, learning to see as God sees, to recognize goodness in others, and to be sensitive to the quiet promptings of the light. Now let me end with a story. There was a man who worked as a janitor in a large hospital. Every day he cleaned floors, emptied trash, and scrubbed walls. Most people passed him without noticing him. One day, someone asked, "Doesn't this job feel small or meaningless sometimes?" The man smiled and said, "I don't clean floors. I help people heal." Others saw thirst. He saw purpose. Others saw a lowly task. He saw love. That is what it means to see in the light of Christ. This Lent, Jesus is passing by us, just as he passed by the blind man. He wants to touch our eyes, our hearts, and our way of seeing. He invites us to move from darkness to light, from pride to humility, from judging to loving. May we recognize the true light, may we choose to follow him, and may we truly live as children of the light.